What's good? It's Woog. I wanted to lend some early thoughts on Gervonta Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia. And yes, we will do a full preview as we near the fight date, but I just wanted to talk about a specific aspect of this fight, or just a couple of thoughts that were playing through my mind as I try to assess the matchup here. And that is, this is billed as a super fight, right? Because we've got two of the biggest names in the game. Like in terms of like non-heavyweights and not Canelo, these are about as big of names as it gets in boxing in terms of who non-boxing fans are even aware of, right? So in super fights of the past, like if you look at like Oscar De La Hoya versus Felix Trinidad, or you name it, both fighters at that point of the super fight had proven themselves versus top or near top tier competition much more than Ryan Garcia, and you could even argue Gervonta Davis have. Yes, Gervonta Davis has beaten Isaac Cruz, an older and one division up Leo Santa Cruz. He had beaten a younger Jose Pedraza early in his career, to where most people for a long time were saying that Pedraza is probably the best win on Gervonta Davis's record. And he's more recently beaten Hector Garcia and Raleigh Romero. For what it's worth, we don't even know really what to make of Raleigh Romero. I remember him struggling against Jackson Marinez. But for a super fight, both of these guys, but Ryan Garcia in particular, is just kind of an unknown, especially because Ryan Garcia is now a 140-ish fighter. I mean, his last two fights against the former, featherweight champion, Javier Fortuna, who was a 126 guy at his best, is fighting Ryan Garcia at 140. And then, Emmanuel Tego fighting Garcia damn near at 140. So one of the X factors here is that Ryan Garcia is going to have to come back to 136, damn near lightweight, where he hasn't competed in lightweight since he stopped Luke Campbell in January of 2021, more than 2 years ago. So we just have to, or we don't have to, but should we assume that Ryan Garcia is going to be in peak performance shape, where the weight cut, dropping those additional couple pounds doesn't affect him? We can assume that. And, to Ryan Garcia's credit, that win over Luke Campbell was a very impressive win. Ryan Garcia had to get off the canvas and stopped Luke Campbell with a vicious body shot in the 7th round. But given the relatively small sample sizes, right, and thin resumes, again, specifically of Ryan Garcia, when we discuss the boxing in this one, because I feel like it's almost a lazy assumption to just assume that it's gonna be a matter of, well, who catches who. Both of these guys are put your lights out power punchers, so who's gonna catch who? But I think that there's more of a boxing angle to this fight than meets the eye. Gervonta Davis, to me, I look at his boxing ability and his skills as being a little bit underrated. And I also look at Ryan Garcia as having vastly improving boxing skills, even making leaps and bounds under Joe Goossen for his last 2 fights. I didn't see him throwing a straight right hand lead repeatedly before that fight with Javier Fortuna. I mean, I remember when he was struggling with Carlos Morales a few years ago. We're talking 2018. I look at Ryan Garcia as being a vastly improving boxer who still has put your lights out power. Gervonta Davis, pretty good defensive fighter. Even when he's getting hit, you get the feeling that he's kind of rolling with punches. He's not getting hit totally flush. But you do see Gervonta Davis losing rounds, multiple rounds against Mario Barrios, against Isaac Cruz. Granted, I look at Davis as being a one-handed fighter for much of that fight against Isaac Cruz. Lost multiple rounds, several rounds against Hector Garcia. I looked at his fight against Leo Santa Cruz as being somewhat even and very competitive at the time of the knockout. Even Raleigh Romero looked like he had won a couple of rounds at least by the time he got stopped. But Gervonta Davis, crafty fighter, I feel like he is, downloading data, as they say, and being a shorter fighter, it is high risk when you have to close the gap and you have to pursue or jump into the pocket against your opponent. So Gervonta Davis, I look at him as having good legs. I mean, I don't think that he would be as successful and as elusive if he didn't have great legs, given his 5'5", 5'5.5" height. So Ryan Garcia is going to be the 5'9", 5'10" fighter in here. He's going to be the tallest guy Gervonta Davis will have fought since Mario Barrios. And again, Gervonta Davis fought Barrios at 140 and was struggling, I saw, against Barrios, to where Floyd Mayweather had to tell him in the middle rounds, between rounds, hey, the unofficial cards on the broadcast, they've got you down on the cards. To which Gervonta Davis took issue with. And then Floyd Mayweather was like, do you want me to lie to you or you want me to keep it real with you? But what I'm wondering in Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia is, until we get to a point where one guy badly hurts the other, which I think that one could cut either way, who is going to be winning the slow rounds, the rather uneventful rounds, the rounds where nobody gets knocked down, nobody gets staggered or just blasted badly? Who's going to win those kind of slow, simmering rounds? The more I look at this fight, the more I'm thinking that the much taller and improving boxer, I look at Gervonta Davis as still being the greater sweet scientist, if you will. But I think that Ryan Garcia might be closing the gap. I don't think he'll ever have the head movement of Gervonta Davis. I don't think he'll ever have the kind of quick twitch upper body movement as Gervonta Davis. I think that he's got comparable hand speed. He might even have a hand speed advantage. I don't know that, but I look at their hand speeds as being comparable. Again, both super dangerous. But I look at Ryan Garcia as perhaps closing the gap, boxing skills wise, to where I could see Gervonta Davis cautiously standing on the outside and losing the minute by minute action, to where, 5 rounds in, you might have Ryan Garcia up 3 rounds to 2 or 4 rounds to 1, to where it'll then be up to Gervonta Davis to have to make a move, to have to do something to keep from falling behind in the scorecards. Now, that could happen one of a couple ways. He could catch Ryan Garcia with one special punch, change the whole complexion with the fight, or he could start throwing more punches, but in throwing more punches, you then start running the risk of making yourself more vulnerable to getting hit. So I think that if Ryan Garcia does start pulling away on the scorecards, then Gervonta Davis might have to start putting his foot on the gas, and then anything could happen. Gervonta Davis could hurt Ryan Garcia, or he could get caught by Ryan Garcia. That's one of the things that makes this Davis versus Garcia fight so damn compelling, is that it feels like we're stepping into the unknown. And yes, some of y'all might say, oh, this is a no-brainer. Gervonta Davis is going to stop him. Look at this reason, look at what he did against this guy and this guy. Yes, there are different cases that you could make as to why Gervonta Davis should ultimately stop Ryan Garcia. He's got more late round knockouts than Ryan Garcia. He's, had a pattern of losing a couple rounds here and there and then closing the show. And maybe he could do that against Ryan Garcia. But I am not underestimating Ryan Garcia's improving boxing skills, nor am I underestimating Joe Goossen's guidance and tutelage and how he's looking at Ryan Garcia's skill set and saying, how can we maximize that? How can we, kind of shore up some of the rough edges, tighten up on some of these defensive flaws, but still maximizing what you could do from an offensive standpoint, and also what we can do to start winning the rounds where, who knows, maybe this fight does not result in a knockout. And if that's the case, wouldn't you rather be the fighter that's winning those slower rounds? I'm starting to think that fighter might be Ryan Garcia, to where it is almost incumbent upon Gervonta Davis to have to do something big to win this fight, whereas Ryan Garcia might have more ways of potentially winning this fight. Not to say that Ryan Garcia is an ultimate back foot fighter who could keep Gervonta Davis at bay, but I'm saying that maybe he could keep him at bay for long enough per round to win more rounds than he's losing. Those are just some early thoughts that I have on this fight. I'm probably going to do another 1 or 2 videos before the actual preview, because there are so many different aspects of this fight to look at. And the more you start fleshing out the possibilities here and the different scenarios that could play out, I just want to give some of these aspects of the fight some thought. And I might even want to do a live chat with y'all or 2 in just discussing this fight as we near the fight date. But yeah, that was just something that was on my mind. Is it going to be Ryan Garcia who's more well equipped to win the slow rounds? And what will that then mean for the urgency that creates for the much shorter, but equally, if not more explosive and I look at, again, Gervonta Davis is having great legs, but he's going to have to jump in there. What is the urgency going to then mean for Gervonta Davis if it is Ryan Garcia who's winning the early rounds, or at least majority of the early rounds, given the height, given the improved boxing skills, and also the ever improving right hand? This is another thing. Ryan Garcia is improving in the right hand. That doesn't mean that he's going to be comfortable enough to use it against somebody who can make you pay like Gervonta Davis can. I remember when Oscar De La Hoya was improving his right hand, but he still wouldn't deploy it in some of the fights against the ultra elite. Whereas, yes, he might feel more comfortable letting the right hand go against a Javier Castellanos, or that was his name, right? Or against Arturo Gatti or somebody like that. Is Ryan Garcia's right hand going to be developed enough to where he could use it against Gervonta Davis? These are just questions that I don't yet have the answers to. But yeah, let me know what some of your early thoughts are on Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia in the comments. And please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.